Hi there, good afternoon, and welcome to the session where we look at the verbal ability and logical reasoning section of the recently concluded XAT. So by now I'm sure all of you have gone ahead, looked at the answer key. I will also keep matching it with the, where did my notes go? With what I wrote in the examination hall, and then I would love to focus on some of those things, some of those questions that you had an issue with. In fact, I think that is the primary utility of this particular session anyway. Additionally, I will also need to look at my own response sheet. So you'd have to cut me some slack, give me that leeway where I keep referring to my notes alongside. Okay, so question number 1, fill in the blank. I basically went on to answer this question using the elimination approach, and it was the third blank that turned out to be the most useful one for me, where you notice this hinder bit was the one that helped me decide it on B, which also turned out to be the right answer incidentally. So some issues with, I will list down those and I'll continue to think further about those. But in this particular case, yes, feeling like a fake can be a sign of growth, and clinging too tightly to what feels like one's authentic self can hinder that growth. So that presented a nice little bit of idea. The rest of them were relatively easy to eliminate. So let's dive into our next one. Once again, another fill in the blank that can be solved using elimination. So what can we put after each? That was basically the challenge. So let's say as each civilization evolved, could have worked, eventually moved to cities, close proximity enhanced how we viewed and assessed each situation. How would that close proximity be linked with situation? That it enhanced and situation were not getting along well with each other, and thus A could be ruled out. But as generations evolved, moved to cities, close proximity changed how we viewed and assessed each other was definitely better. And that is why we could have basically gone on to choose B. As culture evolved, close proximity helped how we viewed and assessed each life. Once again, that each life bit was wrong. As lives evolved and eventually, it's the third blank that did not make a sense in 3 of these answer choices. And in one of these options, option D, we ruled it out with the help of the first blank itself. And here is a grammar based question. So we were supposed to choose the ones which were incorrect. When I read these cursorily, casually, I realized that B is wrong, because this additional off here, not additional, but this off here was not right. If you want to convey that, hey, stay away from the grass, you say keep off the grass. So my answer had to be either A or B. C, D and E were eliminated. Now what is the difference? A and C, and that is when I narrowed down, I looked at these closely. At first glance, I could not see anything wrong, and when I looked at it closely, I realized that, oh, we do not say about 9 AM for time, we use around, and that is why A is wrong, and thus our answer should have been A and B. Tricky question. I think B I would label as a relatively simple error to identify. A versus C could have been tricky for a lot of us, and it could have gone either way. Then question number 4, this is something that I would go ahead and label as an easy question overall. Reason, you needed to be good at subject verb agreement basically, right? And that would have helped you to eliminate, I think, most of the answer choices. So let us go ahead and look at these questions. Where did this go in my notes? So, but this time around we are looking for the ones which are correct. So look at B. Nobody in that group have their reports, his reports. Remember, all these pronouns like everybody, somebody, nobody, everything, somebody, nothing, they are basically singular. So B is incorrect. Because B is incorrect, B should not be a part of your answer. So options A and B are ruled out. Then either of the boys is acceptable to do the errands will work. Either is singular when it used as a subject. Both of the mice is underfed. No, both is plural, so both of the mice are underfed. This is incorrect. Because this is incorrect, option E is also ruled out. It is I who am next. Will feel weird to a lot of you, but then you know, when we use the relative pronoun who, it takes the form of whichever noun or pronoun it refers to and uses the corresponding verb. So the noun that is, or the pronoun that is close to it is I, the corresponding verb is am, so that is correct. The teacher told he and I. No, told, whatever comes after told is the object of told. So instead of he and I, it should have been him and me. So F is incorrect. So D is also ruled out, and therefore you are able to choose C. And see, E was tricky. You may or may not have been in a position to pick it up correctly, but then F was definitely an easy error to identify, and that would have helped you rule out D and E both. So therefore, through the process of eliminated by processor, so I could figure out that I need to have BAD, and there was only one answer choice that gave me BAD, so I went ahead and chose that as the answer, which also was, of course, the right one. Then question number 6, another parajumble, and even in this particular parajumble, I think, where is this in my set? Once again, a couple of these things were rather straightforward, but thereafter this is a relatively, it's not as easy as the previous one, but let's read it together. Maybe you've survived major trauma and have a hard time feeling safe. You will probably discover that your fear and struggles make sense on account of what you have lived through. So now this gave a clue. So there are a couple of sentences that talk about what you have lived through. So you notice you've survived something, you've experienced something. So it's like, I need to have D, A and D after it. It can be BAD, it can be BDA, is what I jotted down in my notes. So BAD, BDA, I needed these for sure, and I could see them in options A and option B. Incidentally, in both of them it was BAD, so that made it easy for me. I did not have to think hard. So now the question is, where does C and E go? So C and E change the tense plus change the POV. So BAD talks about the past, C and E talk about the future, and E should come after C. And because in option B, E is given before C, I eliminated that and thus chose option A. Okay, here is the next one, which essentially talked about fear is the greatest motivator, blah, blah, blah. Now in this one, I essentially worked through the process of elimination, and I felt that A, B and E were easy to rule out. I had to spend time on C versus E. Why? The problem with C was extraordinary achievements. This was not getting supported by the passage. Problem with D was fear is perceived as negative. Once again, this was not stated explicitly, but if you look at it closely, then fear is desire's dark dress. Then another word that is used here is dread, which is negative. And then fear, in a way, there is this implication that it is thought of as destructive. So it was easier to justify fear being perceived as negative as opposed to justifying extraordinary achievements. Therefore, ruled out C and opted for D as the answer, which turned out to be right. Now this was tricky. I narrowed it down to, so first paragraph is redundant, no. Humorous, no. And without the second paragraph, first paragraph is meaningless, no. So choice was between C and E. So the question here was evidence versus elaboration. So I felt that second paragraph lacks evidence. It's not that you are being offered something that cannot be refuted. The author is in fact giving us more detail about the last rule of thumb, and that helped me rule out evidence and lean towards elaborates. Then this one, how do we choose one discovery over other, and Louis Thomas, and then which of the following statements can best be concluded? Let me once again go to my notes. So humans, so let's just go ahead and read it once. How do we choose one discovery over other? So the greatest discovery is our own ignorance. So what can be best concluded? So in this case, in a way, what we are being asked for is the sort of the main idea of the passage. And then humans know more when they know when they know very little. No, that's not automatically true. Humans become scientists. No, they progressed because they knew very little. But then it is definitive, and it says we progressed because of this. It's too definitive. The realization that humans are ignorant led them to invent new things. No, it led to the tendency to know more and not necessarily to invent. Slight subtle distortion therefore E. So I would definitely put it as a difficult question. But this one, this was the key to unlock it. So if I say only through X you get Y, if I now look at it through that lens of logical consistency, what does that mean? It basically implies that no X, no Y. And the other implication is if you have arrived at Y, you must have engaged in X. Okay. So in terms of logical consistency, I can put it as if Y then X, because then you can once again get both of these cases. The other way of putting it would be only if X then Y. And one of these answer choices corresponded to the first formula, and therefore that is the one that we should choose as our answer. X2 Maharashtra, yeah, they did give this date. What was that date? Sometime in March. But then going by my experience of the last year, I am usually a little wary of taking that as a final definitive date. But that said, you should treat that date in the March as your deadline for the time being. What was that date? It suddenly skips my mind because I'm spending a lot of time focusing on all these questions right here. Okay. Now this is a question where I feel the answer should be A, but the official answer is D. I do not agree with this. I feel it should be A, and the reason is, so this is one of those questions that I am going to be raise an objection against. So in the exam, all of these were separated as paragraphs. So this was the last paragraph, the one that I've put in square brackets. If you remove this last paragraph, then yes, D makes sense. But the moment you add that last paragraph, D, no matter how I look at it, no matter how I boil it down, does not sound very convincing to me, frankly. So in this question, I am going with A, and I am going to send this as my objection to the examiners. No matter how I play it out, I am not able to justify this. Just a sec. Fixing a plug can at times be tricky. So this is one of those questions that we should keep under suspense, and even if it is D, even if XAT guys stick to it, I'd have no idea how and why you would arrive at it. Not an answer that I am really very happy with or agree with. Then there was this poem by So let's look at it. In the darkened room, a woman. So this is a very visual poem. It was very rich of visual imagery, and it basically portrayed the woman of a place where there is no electricity, is using lamps. So it also tells you that we are talking about somebody who comes from a rural area or village or is impoverished. Okay, otherwise who really uses oil lamps? So very fascinating poem, and we basically needed to go ahead and crack that symbolism or that metaphor which was used in this particular poem. I'd say that the last stanza was the key here, but you could work through the process of elimination. It is not talking about the quality of life. It is not talking about suffering and frustration. She is not frustrated. Nowhere does you see that there is this frustration building. She's still resting. It is definitely not celebrating. Revolves around a woman whose liberty has been throttled. So I think at the end of the day, I found A, B and C easy to rule out, and I was focusing on D versus E. And like, is the liberty throttled? Darkened room, she's alone. She must have done whatever she wants to do. Now she wants to sleep, but she's not able to sleep. Lamp, mirror, drunken yellow flames know where her lonely body hides. So this last line leaned towards alienation, and that is why E becomes a good answer choice. And similarly, if you look at 13, which of the following best, where is that drunken? I think they've put this again. Okay, the other question went missing apparently. So the next question was about drunken yellow flames. So the correct answer given was, lines represent flames as distorted memories that preserve her identity. So once again, something that we could have inferred from the last sentence itself. So would have worked in this case for that question too. Okay, and let's look at this. This was a tricky passage. Okay, behavioral economists like to remind us reduction, complex reality, we boil it down. So where did this go? So here is the first question based on this passage. Best interpretation regarding reductive instincts. So there were two answer choices that I felt were close. One of those was A. This is ruled out. This was easy to rule out. E, because it talked about just moral message, could have been ruled out. So basically stuck between A and D, and this is where it could have gone either way. So in the exam, this is one of those questions that I got wrong. Reductive instincts tell us to reduce. So I ended up marking A. The official answer was D, and this is another one of those questions that I am contemplating. So it's not that D cannot be arrived at. If in the hindsight, if I look at it in the exam, you're attempting a lot of things, you're under time pressure. So I ended up choosing A, but this part, I think this definitely leans more towards D, and I think in the hindsight I do agree that D is better than A, but in the exam there's one of those questions that I got wrong and I ended up marking A. And Ankit, write to the test conducting body. Sumant, I'd say that for a couple of questions here and there, yes. But as I said, some of these questions were difficult. One of those questions, even I don't agree with the answer key for sure. Sumant says, sir, I think you are also not sure of answer. Sumant, wherever I am not sure of the answer, I am sharing it with you. For example, in 11th, I chose what I chose and I told you why. In 14th, I chose A. But for majority of the questions, I think what I've chosen, in fact, for a significant majority, barring 4 questions, In every other case, my answer and the official answer key is the same, so I did not even have to worry. So when you say not sure, you can actually ask me in case you have some issue with one of these answer choices. You want me to dig deeper, I can. Otherwise, we have this finite amount of time, and I also noticed that not very many people are turning up for this session. So I am also not diving really deep and taking you back to the relevant line as we would usually do in most of our discussions. So am I not sure? I don't know. As I said, except 4 questions, I got everything right. So, and out of those 4, there were 2 questions that I did not attempt because I was not able to make up my mind, and there were 2 that I got wrong. This is one of those 2. So I don't know. So it was not that easy in the exam, Sumant. On the other hand, my scores and my percentiles normally suggest that I find these exams easy, so can't help it. Okay, 15th. This was one of those questions that I did not have to spend much time, and I could straight away mark this unexpected complexity. This I think is fairly easy and direct, that could have been inferred from the passage. Sumant, it's fine. It's okay to get some of these questions wrong in English. Yeah? Not everything works according to a formula, right? Okay, then the next one. This was another tricky one. Huh? Beauty has an aesthetic, but it is not the same as aesthetics. This part and the next one, definitely something that I would put under the category of difficult. So once again, let me go ahead and look at my response sheet. Which of the following cannot? Beauty is defined and appreciated. This was easy. The paragraph very clearly at a couple of places tells us that the standards of beauty are set. They are beyond us. So considering that D was false according to the passage, we could have chosen it with relative ease. And then Sumant says you do not have to attempt QA. They have to. Absolutely. I do not have to. You're right. But then I attempted the entire decision making. I attempted the entire VARC, and then I do pitch in with QA. So when I say I do pitch in, we have a small team here at BYJU'S exam prep. We go through the entire paper, we come back, sit down together, discuss everything. So I don't have to, but considering that it's a small team, at the end of the day, you can have very few elite teachers. Then we have managed to build an amazing team of elite teachers. We need to look at the entire paper so that we can look at it, discuss it. Moreover, when I go through VARC, I look at a question, I say this is easy because that's my domain, that's my area. But when I talk about a quant question, I talk about it from the perspective of a lay person or a student. So that changed perspective, that changed POV also ends up adding a lot of value. So I thought 16th was definitely easy. Then what's wrong? They have not changed the question. I think PPT बनाने में थोड़ा गड़बड़ किया मेरे टीम ने. So this question should have been, which question was this? It was which of the following best explains beauty to be simultaneously a blessing and a site of conversion? That is the question. It's not this. And this is where, if you look at the passage and go look at the immediate context of where it is written. Here, look at the very next sentence. You can become beautiful if you accept the right prophets and their wisdom with a side of products thrown in for good measure. This, so I was basically looking at 2 answer choices. The 2 options were D and A. These were the 2 that I had to think of. But then when I look at A, the second half was not getting supported by the passage. On the other hand, the second half of D results in a provider of the blessing in a capitalist society. There is somebody who tells you how to become beautiful, and that makes it a capitalist society. That eventually help me lean towards D, but this was, my God, very tricky question. The answer choices were definitely ambiguous, and this is the kind of question where if somebody gets it wrong, I do not begrudge it. Say, yaar, chhod dete, koi baat nahi. Then the next one, moral frames. This is a passage that I personally found relatively easy. This along with that vaccine when were the two that I could go through rather fast. So where is that passage? Let me just open that in my response sheet. Where did it go? Moral frames. Behavioral economists, poem, beauty, vaccine. अभी किधर गया मेरे response sheet में ये passage? Okay, here you go. All right. So this question, easy. Why easy? Just refer to this part. Unfavorably, so different moral frames. Where do you go? So conservatives view most favorably the institutions that they believe constrain and guide people towards civilized behavior, and they view most unfavorably those who they see as trying to tear down such institutions. So they're basically saying it's your behavior that determines whether you're civilized or not. And that is where C became the best answer. The rest of them could be very easily eliminated. Anupam 19.9, I think, yeah, GB, the session that GB took. Remember, immediately after that, there is a session that we took analyzing it. Towards the end of the session, we did give you a detailed breakup. So you can go and refer to that particular part. In fact, I'd requested the team to create a short out of it. If it hasn't been done, I'll just get it done at the earliest. Okay. So hopefully that'll answer it. I'd have to go and refer to that data. I don't have it handy with me right now. And Sumantya, 80 percentile needs a little more work. Yes. Okay. 19th. Author's usage of the term moral frames. So in a way, they were perspectives that help you decide what is right and what is wrong, right? And that was captured in this. So becomes the correct answer. And then 20th, which of the following can best be concluded from the above passage? So this is something that if you look at the last paragraph, you would have arrived at D. The rest of them are going to be can't say. So for instance, the problem in E is the use of the word most. B is again most. Knowing why you think the way you think enables you to understand others' perspective was close, but if you have to take out one key lesson from the passage, D will be better than A, and that is how we lean towards D. But then A versus D was very tricky in this, and if this is the mistake that you've made, it's okay. इस तरह की गलतियां तो माफ है यार. Okay, and then this paragraph, this passage. So ignorant mind, this was easy because E was false and therefore straight away could have been picked up as the answer. Then we are all engines of misbelief. So here, this is another one of those questions that I got wrong. I chose this, which turned out to be wrong, and I think the right answer choice given was D. So this is something that I'm still pondering over. So just like question number 11, I'm keeping question number 22 as suspense. I am still worried about B versus D and what makes D superior to B. I don't know, I'm not sure. This is something that I would want to look at once again with a fresh pair of eyes. Okay. So I don't know, B versus D. The official answer is D. I can't tell you why. I can rule out A, C and E, but B versus D, tricky for me. Then 23rd, with which of the following statements will the author agree with the most? Where is this particular passage? Once again, let me just go and check. Idiocy. Okay. Here it is. So this was once again a tricky question. This is one of those questions that I left in the exam. So I told you I did not attempt to. This was one of those questions that I did not attempt, and I did not attempt it because I was thinking about these two. So later on, yes, when I started looking at it, I think in the context of the passage, yes, the author is questioning whatever we hold as true as true. It is leaning towards C, but B was also very close. So B versus C is very tricky, very challenging. And then vaccine was the one that I personally found to be the easiest and the least ambiguous, where I agree with, I practically got all of these right. So obviously I agree with the official answer key in this. There are no worries. So safety net was the answer in this for me. Where did this question go? So this is, which of the following cannot be concluded? So our survival as a community is largely based on herd immunity is something that you cannot determine. So that's one tiny bit of problem here. And then banking of immunity was, this was something that I would probably label as an easy question. So I'd love that safety net one was the answer. And finally the 26th one, which is the author will agree with most interconnected, was basically the main idea of the passage and therefore was the answer. Then Siddharth, can you get XLRI calls at 37.5? Siddharth, there are a lot of variables, you know, you're an engineer or not, gender, lot of things that determine this. So there was a session that we took immediately after XAT. Just go through the last few minutes of the session where we gave that range for all these different categories. That should help you get this question. I will otherwise have to look back and go consult that data. I don't have it handy around me as of now, and therefore I'd not be able to give you an answer straight away. I told the team to make a short on this. In case the short has not been made, I will get it uploaded in a day or two. So you can check it. And those of you who are focusing on Maharashtra CET, we are launching a crash course with all these amazing features to add to it, a really tempting, really mouth-watering price. So if you are targeting Maharashtra CET and you are thinking of preparing, this is going to be an amazing opportunity for you. In case you still have some doubts or you just want to talk to one of us to figure out the road ahead and address your concerns one-on-one, don't forget to fill out this form and we'd be with you. So that's it from me today. I look forward to meeting you in our next session rather soon, with a focus on the exams that still lie ahead. Until then, stay safe, stay focused, stay in touch, keep working hard, and you'll find us right around whenever you need.